No be small thing, my sister. No be small thing. We've been thrown from one room to another. So are we here or are we going back to the main session?
Don't ask me this.
I think we're in the same.
Technology.
Okay, sorry. My edition was
I'm
muted.
my children. I'm picking
Hello.
up my children. Yes,
Sorry,
we're here,
sorry,
Remy.
sir. We are rounding up
We're
now.
confused.
In 1 minute,
Okay.
can you share with us a take home that you will say this is my recommendation for this section, sir?
Okay, so
Who?
for me,
Wallet?
for
Okay.
me, technology must work for people. We shouldn't be deploying 5G for 5G's sake, 4G, 3G, whatever. You see, we need to make it work for us. There's something you talk about, meaningful connectivity. My own take on that is that higher education institutions, where this is a country that has a teeming population of young people. We need to connect them. And where are these people aggregated? They are in universities, they are in polytechnics, they are this higher education institution is in the broadband plan. They need to extract that and make sure that with the NG rent, with the rents and co, we connect these people with high-speed internet, because that means we're putting technology to work. And do the same thing for hospitals. We need to connect those two things so that our people can really understand that technology is impacting their lives.
All right, thank you very much, Wole. Before we go, there are some questions on the chat, and I would like us to give it about 30 seconds. Joshua was talking about 5G deployment, which is capital intensive in terms of infrastructure. Can we say Nigeria is really ready for this with the high rate of insecurity? For Mr. Teniola, is Nigeria ready for 5G?
Well, Nigeria is still on the cusp and on the journey to increase its 4G rollout. We have an operator in Nigeria that has claimed that they've rolled out 60% of 4G, and we have others that are still rolling out. Our target for 2025 is to have 90% 4G coverage, and therefore there will be pockets of 5G rolled out. But unless we have fiber that is pervasive, then we are not ready for 5G. Thank you.
Okay. Ronke, what's your take on that? Are we ready for 5G?
I don't think so.
Very shortly.
We're not ready for 5G. There's so many reasons why we're not ready for 5G. In addition to what has been mentioned, you still have a literacy gap that needs to be addressed. Handsets are not available. The ones that are 5G are very expensive. They're too expensive for the people who need to use them. So in terms of the ubiquitous use of 5G, a 5G network, I'm looking at least, if I may say, I'm so sorry to say, 5 to 10 years down the line, not now. It's good that the NCC is talking about it. We need to actually license it as soon as possible. But having licensed it in terms of rollout, in terms of uptake, because we need to address both the demand and the supply aspect of things. The demand aspect of things, we will need to, there needs to be a use case. And that use case needs to generate the actual supply of the service. I'll stop there.
Okay, do you think that in other words, are you saying that we should fully maximize 4G before talking about 5G network?
The way things have been done in Nigeria is to do everything. I mean, when 3G came in, people were not ready for it. But over time, there were handsets that could use it, and so on. The same thing with 4G. There are handsets that are used increasingly different, not handsets, not just handsets, but various devices that use that particular technology. 5G, we will need to work on it, in my own opinion. So everything needs to be worked on over time. The sooner we get it in, the better it is for us. But in terms of uptake, it'll take some time.
All right, that question came from Simon. On this note, permit me to thank all of us for joining this section, especially our lead speaker, Tateniola, our sister, Oyerenke Oyetunde, for joining us from MTN, and my brother, Joseph Wole Abu from Liquid Telecom. We thank you all, as well as all our participants, for making this session very interesting and interactive. Thank you very much, and stay safe. God bless.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much again. I can see all the sessions are closed, and most of us have actually returned to the wrap-up session. So are we ready for the wrap-up session? So Grace Ojubo. Okay, so we'll go straight and we'll start the wrap-up session. And I think it should be done in the order of the numbering of the sessions, please. So we will start with the first breakout session, accessibility. Can our rapporteurs come up for accessibility? Thank you very much.
We are back from the plenary. And while we wait for the lead rapporteurs to come forward, I want to ask if we have any questions. This is the time to ask us questions and let us know who you want the questions directed to. If you have questions, can you please indicate and come forward, come online? Yes, you can also type your questions. You can type your questions, we'll get them and read them out. Okay, you can also raise your digital hand. If you have any questions, we'll get you. You can type it, you can raise your hands. We're waiting for your questions, please. Okay. We have a hand up.
Okay. Can you hear me?
Can you
Yes, we
speak,
can
please,
hear
if
you.
you have your hand up?
Okay. I want to talk about the local. I want to ask why we have 5 internet exchange points in the country. And it seems only Facebook is making use of them. Why not include other data intensive platforms like YouTube, Zoom, and the rest of them?
If we got the question, can somebody please respond?
Do I need to come again?
Yes, I'd like you to ask that question again so that they hear you properly.
Okay, we have about 5 internet exchange points in the country.
Okay.
And so far, it's been Facebook making use of it,
Okay.
where we have other platforms such as YouTube and Zoom. Why I want to know why, I want to ask why they have not been included so far.
Okay. Did you get that question? Oh yeah. Who is asking? What's your name, sir?
Segun Ajayi, I'm
Miss-
Segun Ajayi from Ilori.
Mr. Segun Ajayi, yes. Who do you want the question? Who do you want to answer that question? Who are you directing your question to?
Anyone who is capable of
Okay.
handling it,
So
yes.
anyone who wants to take it up is asking
Yes.
about internet exchange points and how come Facebook is the only one using it. Did I get you right?
Yes, exactly.
Good. Can we have someone answer that question, please? Okay. Okay. I think that's a general question. I've just been told that we need questions based on the plenary that has just taken place and directed to one of the members of the panel. Mr. Segun Ajayi, did you hear me? We need to restrict ourselves to questions that has to do with the plenary that has just taken place.
Okay, okay, thank you. I heard you.
Thank you. Do we have any question with regards to the plenary? There was one on accessibility, there was one on infrastructure, there's another one on capacity building and development. Any questions on those areas, those sessions that took place? If you do, can you raise up your digital hand or type it? It appears we don't have any question. We do. Yes. Can we have you? If your hands are up, can we have you? What's your name and what's your question?
This is Tayo from Lagos. Please, can you hear me?
Can you speak louder? What's your name and what's your question, sir?
This is Tayo from Lagos.
Okay, sir, you're welcome. Can you ask a question?
Okay. To the infrastructure team, I want to ask that what's the possibility of deploying solar systems? How viable is it? How effective is it to deploy solar system for our power instead of the fossil fuel that is currently being used by the telecoms providers? What's the I'm sure they've probably done some POC, how visible it is, both short-term and long-term usage of solar-powered system for our network infrastructures. Thank you.
How can we use solar system to power networks, right? Good. Who's going to answer that question, please? Yes, yes, someone from the infrastructure panel, please. Can someone from the infrastructure panel kindly answer the question that is talking about the use of solar to power networks? Can they hear us? They can. Okay.
Yes, we can hear you, ma'am.
Yes, please. Can someone kindly respond to that question? Did you get the question? The moderator for the infrastructure panel, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Please, can somebody kindly respond to the question on the use of solar?
Well, I don't know if my panelists are still hanging on, but if they're hanging on, maybe Wole can take that question. Wole is the MP of the Telecom. He also spoke slightly on solar while we are discussing. And one of the high points he raised was that it's also very costly too, outside the fact that the people do vandalize the panels. Thank you.
Okay, part of your response is that we also face the challenge of vandalization with panels. Is that part of your response?
Yes, but then it's still also very costly using that to run the service.
Okay.
Service, telecommunication service.
Okay, so vandalization and the cost implication of using solar. Okay. Any other question? Any other question to our panelists?
If I may raise, there's a question online, please.
Okay, we have a question.
Yes, Godwin Simon wants to find out how he can check his data usage.
Okay, as a consumer, he wants to find out how he can check his data usage.
Exactly.
Okay, who's going to answer that question for us?
I think, hello, madam.
Sir.
Hello? Yeah, I think he can actually do that using checking his device. He can actually do that from his device. It depends on what device he's using for the whatever data he wants to check on. But every device nowadays comes with either usage regulation or settings. So he should be able to get that from his settings and know how data is being distributed.
Okay. The person who asked the question, did you get that? You can manage your data yourself. You just need to go to your telephone and go to your settings and find a way around it. I think you can ask questions and you'll be able to. And also you can follow us on our social media platforms. We have quite a number of questions and answers with regards to data depletion and data usage. So just follow us on Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, and YouTube. You'll get quite a number of answers to your questions, okay? Okay, do we have any more questions? Any more questions for our panelists? Okay. Okay, we are waiting for the rapporteurs. Are you set? You're ready? Okay. Give us a few minutes. We'll call the rapporteurs to, the lead rapporteurs will come forward and give us what they have.
Okay, thank you all. Thank you all very much. It's been a very fruitful session, and we appreciate your attendance, and we actually are excited that this has been a very good forum so far. We were missing one item at the beginning of our discussion, which was the wrap-up of the formal opening ceremony. We had a gentleman who runs the Internet Exchange Point as well as our domain, country code top level domain, Mr. Mohammed Rudman, who was supposed to give us some vote of thanks. Mr. Rudman, if you're online, please, we'll invite you to give us your vote of thanks. But before Mr. Rudman speaks, there's a question waiting for him. A gentleman asked why it's only Facebook that uses our Internet Exchange Point, and why not, I think he gave YouTube as an example. So please, Mr. Rudman, you run the Exchange Point, you run the domain, country code top level domain. It's a pleasure for us. In fact, I could say that you're the foundation of the internet in Nigeria. So it's a pleasure for us to actually have you here. So please, if you can have a go at the question before you give us your vote of thanks, we'll really appreciate that while the rapporteurs are getting ready. Thank you very much, Mr. Rudman.
Thank you so much, my brother. Thank you, Mr. Emmanuel. Okay, it's not only Facebook. We have some of the major content providers connected to the Internet Exchange Point. We have Google, we have the Facebook he mentioned, we have Microsoft, we have Akamai, we have Cloudflare, we have Lamplight, we have all others. In fact, the last one that we're working towards connecting to the exchange point is Amazon. And based on the connectivity of these huge content providers, 60 to 70% of traffic for all the service providers that are connected to the Internet Exchange Point of Nigeria is localized. And therefore, the cost of internet has significantly dropped for those internet service providers. And for some of them, they do pass it to the end users, while for others, because of their high operational costs, it's not necessarily passed to the end users. That is for the question regarding the Internet Exchange Point. Well, for the vote of thanks, kindly permit me, everyone, please to stand on the existing protocol. It is indeed an honor for me to present this vote of thanks at this year's Nigeria's Internet Governors Forum. And on behalf of the Nigeria Multi-Stakeholder Advisory Group, I would like to thank our special guest, Professor Isa Ali Ibrahim Fantami, our digital minister, for attending this important event despite his busy schedule. We appreciate his presence at the NIGF 2021. His keynote address, as usual, has enlightened us on the role of all the key stakeholders, especially his ministry, towards achieving internet for all. So we thank him so much. We want to extend our heartfelt gratitude to Professor Garba Umar Dambata, the Executive Vice Chairman of Nigerian Communications Commission, for honoring our invitation, for him participating at this event. Mr. Kashif Abdullahi Inua, the Director General of National Information Technology Development Agency, was ably represented by Dr. Vincent Olatunji, what is it called? The Miss Henriette Etayum, the Chairperson of Internet Governance Advisory Council, Mrs. Mary Uduma, and other people Mary Uduma, sorry, the West African IGF coordinator, and other people that are in the first session that I did not recognize. We thank them all for being part of this special occasion. And thank you to all the speakers at the main plenary session moderated by Bernard Ewa. Your local, regional, and global perspective on Internet for All is well appreciated. And to all the speakers for the various breakout sessions we had, thank you so much for accepting our invitation. I must not forget to thank the event organizers. This is a group of dedicated individuals from various organizations who gave up their time, energy to make this community event a reality. Thank you so much, the chairs, Saharu, Alasan, Tokumbo from NCC, people from NIDA like Emmanuel Edet. We are so grateful. And to the members of the press that are covering this event, we say a big thank you. Finally, thank you to our adoring audience for making this event a success. Thank you so much. We really appreciate everyone that participated in this event. And my apologies if I don't mention a particular category segment of the ecosystem that are here or your name if I have not mentioned it. We really, really appreciate you. Thank you so much for joining this event. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mohammed, for your vote of thanks. It's really ironic to thank the person who has done the thanking for the entire NIGF. But Mohammed, we really appreciate you. You were patient and you took your time and you have provided us with an excellent vote of thanks. We thank you also very much for being available to assist us throughout these processes and up to now. So I will hand over back to Grace for the wrapping up session, please. Thank you very much. So Grace, over to you. We are not picking up your audio.
All right, thank you very much, Emmanuel Edet, for that. And time now to invite the lead rapporteurs to come and give us the resolutions. Okay, and it's my pleasure to invite to come forward Ms. Rabiat Bakari, who is the lead for section 1 and 4. Can you please come forward?
Good afternoon, everyone. Allow me to start on existing protocol, please. I'm Rabia Tubakari from the Ministry of Communication and Digital Economy. Section 1, Internet work we had 5 speakers. The following discussion point. The speakers stressed the need that the internet should be seen not as a luxury mechanism, but as infrastructure that is critical for economic activities. In addition, it was also stressed that the internet needs to be affordable. it was also discussed that the federal government, in collaboration with stakeholders, need to develop appropriate frameworks that will bring national broadband plan to actualization. Government and key stakeholders also need to encourage the building of this infrastructure in order to improve. Stable electricity is also critical in order to harness the full power of the internet, in particular to rural communities in Nigeria. Knowledge to do with the internet too is also lacking among the populace, especially in the rural areas, how to fully harness the internet. The internet too is also seen as an intervention technology in order to harness education, in order to harness the education sector, health sector, as well as the agricultural sector. The key issues raised. COVID-19 was highlighted as a factor that needs to push the actualization of internet infrastructure to the wider populace. There is need for Nigeria to have internet resource and content available in local languages. Stakeholders also observed the need for capacity building for citizens to explore the opportunities that are available on the internet. Fiber optic was also identified as a critical infrastructure in order to harness the internet. Satellite technology was also identified as another infrastructure for the internet. Affordability is very critical to low-income earners in order to harness the internet. Other tools that were, other interventions, that were suggested in order for the internet to be fully harnessed is introducing mechanisms such as tax holidays, license fee reduction, or outright cancellation for internet facilitators or companies in order for them to reach underserved communities. There is also a need was also stressed that innovation needs to be accelerated faster for the internet space. Inequality was also identified as another barrier to internet access. Gender accessibility was also identified as another barrier. Key recommendations for session 1. Infrastructure sharing should be encouraged by government and the key stakeholders to improve accessibility. Stakeholders need to have internet resources and content available in local languages. Community network and financial incentives such as tax holidays and license fee reduction or cancellation should be encouraged to facilitate accessibility in underserved communities. New ways of connecting people nationwide through incentives and a right mix of policy framework is required. The stakeholders also recommended capacity building for citizens. in order to create opportunities for wider access for the internet. So now we'll move to session 4. Internet that works for all, capacity building or development. So some of the discussion points was a need to create strategies that will enable regulatory instruments that foster growth in this ecosystem. Government should focus more on policy and work with private sector for implementation. Technology was identified as an enabler to create internet that will be accessed by all. There is also greater need for private sector collaboration, that's between the government and the private sector, in order to improve internet access. Some other discussion points were that citizens need greater catalyst. I mean, government needs to encourage citizens to use the internet more by providing incentives to them. The experts identified government policies. Some experts identified government policies as being restrictive and may hinder innovation. Education was also identified as something that needs to be strengthened in order to facilitate greater internet access. In addition to identifying education, this education needs to be broken down into different learning based on age. So in order to teach the internet, you have to teach it depending on the age of the person learning it. Parents were also identified as critical stakeholders to enable children learn about the internet. So we'll go to some of the key issues raised. Some of the key issues raised were the gap between government policy and private sector innovation. Therefore, there needs to be closer collaboration between the government and private sector in order to bridge this gap. Capacity building of young Nigerians was also identified in order to teach the internet to them. Some other key issues raised by other experts was there has to be a balance that has to be struck in regards internet and cybercrime. So policies of government can't be too restrictive to hinder innovation, but cybercrime cannot be allowed to thrive in the internet space. So we can go to key recommendations for session 4. Government should focus more on policy and work with private sector for implementation of wider internet penetration. Technology is an enabler. technology should be seen as an enabler/solution rather than a problem in order to facilitate wider internet use. The skills of the citizens in regards internet use also has to be taught to them and has to be greater, has to be beefed up, has to be. Other key issues raised, key recommendations, as we mentioned already, parents are very important stakeholders. They've been identified as key to get their children educated on internet use. Law enforcement are other critical stakeholders in regards preventing cybercrime. Okay. Thank you. I think those were the key issues raised during session 1 and 4. So I will hand over. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Rabiat Bakari. That was a good job. Huh? So let me clap for you. Okay. Thank you so much. All right. Thank you. Now it's my pleasure to invite Dr. Hamza Salami, who is the lead rapporteur for sessions 2 and 4, infrastructure, capacity building and development. Please, Mr. Salami, Dr. Salami, come forward. 2 and 3. Yes, 2 and 3. That's infrastructure, policy and regulation. Yes. It's not working. Okay, is it working? I think so. We'll use both of them.
Okay. Good day, everyone. I'll be speaking on the key issues raised and recommendations for sessions 2 and 3. So I'll start with session 2, Internet that works for all, infrastructure. The key summaries of the presentations made, one, the presenters stressed the need to increase broadband penetration, especially in rural areas. And then while they recognized the fact that government has realized that telecoms infrastructure is part of the critical national information infrastructure, they advised on the need to pursue the protection of critical national infrastructure bill so that we'll be able to properly safeguard telecoms equipment. Furthermore, they stressed the need to have more intervention for the internet to be cheap and accessible, especially in the rural areas. And then regarding infrastructure issues, they raised concerns on the need to have increased stakeholder participation and to also leverage innovative technologies. Now we go to the key issues raised. The first one was the issue of multiple taxation, that there's a need to have a uniform permit for the telecom operators. And also power is a serious challenge for the telcos because electricity, the cost for providing electricity for the telecoms equipment sometimes reaches up to 50% of the capital expenditure. And then they raised concerns about extortion by some government officials. Lastly, they talked about security concerns, especially for the personnel that manages telecoms infrastructures. Now, the key recommendations raised are as follows: that funding is required to help to improve the telecoms infrastructure. and also that there's a need to improve the general power supply. And then they mentioned the need to ensure massive rollout of fiber optics in order for the 5G to take off smoothly. And then finally, they recommended that universities and hospitals need to be connected to the internet. So that's all for session 2, sorry. I would now move to session 3, which talks about internet that works for all, policy and regulation. The summary of the points discussed is that internet policy and regulation is very critical, and that there needs to be the efforts need to be made to ensure that there's proper implementation and execution of policies, existing policies and regulations. The session also highlighted that policy is a task that is delegated to government on behalf of entire stakeholders. So policy should not be left to government alone. Now, on the key issues raised, concerns were raised on the restriction stroke shutdown of internet platforms in the country, such as Twitter. It was also mentioned that policies should be made that support collaboration, capacity building, and operational excellence. Concerns were also raised about regulation of the internet through social media. There was also some discussion on how to access information by those in states where there had been shut down of telecom infrastructures. And then the participants talked about data protection, especially as we now have lots of citizens' data that needs to be managed. So the key recommendations from session 3, sorry, are that number one, there needs to be independence of institutions and agencies in Nigeria, and that policy should be created in the best interest of the nation, not interests of individuals, certain individuals. It is also recommended that policies should be developed that enables collaboration, capacity building, and operational excellence in order to improve investments in the country. Next, there is need for government to be proactive in the disclosure of information. Another recommendation is that security has to be studied side by side with the economy when government makes its decisions, that the security alone should not be considered in isolation. Next, there is need to engage the private sector when making rules and policies in the internet ecosystem. Government should follow international standards while making policies. And then finally, there is need for young people to also be involved in the policy-making process. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Hamza. Put your hands together for him. Okay, thank you very much. We are coming to the end of this program. And that was the recommendations from the plenary. It's time now for the wrap up, the way forward, the way forward. And it's my pleasure to invite to come forward here, Dr. Haru Al-Hassan, who is the Director of New Media and Information Security of the Nigerian Communications Commission. He's going to come forward and give us the way forward. Sir, you're welcome. Thank you, sir.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I am honored to have the opportunity to give the vote of thanks at this hour, which is the closing of this event. I particularly liked the opening remark where my boss, the executive vice chairman of the Nigerian Communications Commission, mentioned the internet as being one of the most important and critical resource the world over. One of the most important and critical resource the world over. With COVID-19 pandemic, it has changed the way we work and live. During the forum, we conducted a variety of presentations on internet governance. The next thing is for us to leverage on outcome and recommendations and get the stakeholders to work on implementing them. I will use this opportunity to thank the chairman, Global Internet Governance Forum, for honoring our invitation and participating at this event. Our sincere gratitude goes to our stakeholders and the internet communities like NITDA, NIRA, Federal Ministry of Communications and Digital Economy, Nigerian Communication Commissions, and the Internet Society. I would want to appreciate the effort of the local and multi-stakeholder advisory group, the Nigerian School of Internet Governance, the Women Internet Governance Forum, and the Youth Internet Governance Forum. The volunteers and the working teams, finance, technical, communications, and administrative committees that work tirelessly in putting this event together. Finally, I wish to thank all the distinguished guests, panelists, moderators, referees, conferees, and participants for actively participating and making this event a great success. I believe the outcome of today's deliberations and discussions will spearhead and drive further efforts being made by the respective stakeholders in ensuring the nation participates in best practices in governing of the internet today. Thank you all.
Thank you very much, Engineer Haru Al-Hassan of New Media and Information Security of the Nigerian Communications Commission. It's been one very eventful day. We have learned a lot today, and we have come to the end of this forum. My name is Grace Ojukwu. It's been a pleasure comparing this event, and we hope by the grace of God we'll meet